Welcome to Marty Time TV. It is Monday. I am so happy to see you all, and congratulations to so many of you parents who have kids in San Diego Unified. You had last week, you had a week off of spring break. The week before that, it was probably minimum day for a parent-teacher conference. So congratulations, you survived. And speaking of survived, the Padres survived getting swept, the humiliation, the outrage on Twitter. I'm delighted to bring into the show our friend Darnay Tripp from NBC 7. He's been so good to me and to my previous radio shows here on Marty Time TV, which, by the way, is brought to you by the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. Darnay, how are you? How are the twins? Thanks to the twins for letting you,
Yeah.
some free time.
Yeah, you shouldn't thank me. You should thank them. This is completely in their hands. Just spent the morning with them, put them down for a nap. So far, things are going well. They're quiet, seem to be settling into that nap. So hopefully that's the case for the next 20 minutes or however. But always happy to be with you and glad that to this point, the twins have done us the favor of allowing us to have this conversation.
How old are the twins, by the way?
The twins are 2.5, and I was just setting up the laptop kind of in a strange room in here. They're just across the hallway, and Jackson walks in, and he sees me on the laptop and says, "Dada!" And so I lifted him up on my lap, and he's very intrigued by all of this. So he thought it was very, very interesting, but then I had to kind of drag him out and get them settled in. So here we are. You know the routine. You know how it goes.
I do. Jackson and Poppy?
Jackson Poppy, well done.
Jackson
yeah.
Poppy. Okay, really quick. Years from now, you can tell your son, I named you after Jackson Merrill, right? That's what you're going to do. Like if he keeps ascending the way he is and the way the Padres just pay him to go ahead and be, you can say, listen, kid, I named you after Jackson Merrill.
It could be a really popular name if things continue to go on this trajectory, and he's in elementary school in 5-6 years, whatever it is. It could work out really well. We'll say maybe it's not because it's your grandmother's maiden name. Maybe it's just because Jackson Merrill is a stud and he's going to be a stud for the Padres for a long time. I think that angle will earn him a lot more like street cred in school and in Little League and all that than the familial ties.
I would completely agree. So I want to get to, it was a really fun weekend here in San Diego. I actually got to go to my second SDFC game. That was against the Seattle Sounders, but my nephew, he freaking loved it. And I'm going to jump into that because later on in today's show, I'm not sure if you'll still be here for that though. I did catch up with Manny Machado, of course, on the previous homestand to ask him about his involvement with SDFC. Why did this guy want to go ahead and get involved? I mean, he has we know hundreds of $1 million in baseball money, right? He's a superstar. He's projecting towards the Hall of Fame. He's a new father. Why get involved with an expansion team? So we had a nice conversation on the last homestand, because last year, you know how it was. If you wanted to talk to Manny about SDFC, he would say, listen, I'm only here to talk baseball. But now that it's here, right, and you have people in uniforms and everything else to go with it, I enjoyed talking to him. Of course, he's been to at least 2 games, right? He flew his teammates out during spring training. He was there, I think, last weekend following the Padres day game against, was it the Braves? And then he and his teammates went out there for LAFC.
And then don't forget, first home match, he raised the ball, the chrome ball. So he was there, St. Louis as well. So he's been a regular, and it's been cool to see. And I don't know, I feel like we're seeing a lot of athletes kind of dabble in this to some degree. Obviously, with other leagues, I think Patrick Mahomes with the NWSL team, I think he and his wife are involved there. I think Joe Burrow's done some stuff. So you're seeing it more and more. And I think athletes, they understand it's a brand, it's a business, it's a chance to diversify a little bit and kind of maybe set things up for, whenever the contract runs out, whenever you're 41 years old and decide your playing days are over, you have something to kind of fall back on, or at least some experience to draw from. And so it's been cool to see Manny get involved in that way, and clearly be excited. I mean, like every single match, he's like reposting videos, like. I think we were all kind of curious, like how engaged he would be. And he has been as engaged with this as you could imagine a full-time, high-level professional athlete would be. And father as well. He's a busy guy.
Yes, very. Yeah, so he has his son in the clubhouse the very last game of last homestand before they flew off to Chicago. That was really, really cute to go ahead and see. All right, let's go ahead. I do want to go ahead and play Manny Machado. We'll have a portion of that during today's live show. By the way, before I continue, because I heard from so many of you guys last weekend when I had my buffering issues saying, listen, you need to stop being cheap, upgrade your Wi-Fi. I called Spectrum today and they told me the average person experiences 3 timeout outages per day on their, I'm averaging 48 per day. So
Whoa.
You guys are 48 tech issues. So they are sending out a technician later on today to go ahead and deal with my issues. So thank you all for your patience. Hopefully we don't have any issues. I'm still getting set up. I'm still working from a Nickelodeon Child's Table right now and a Princess Light for my background. So you guys, I'm getting there. I promise. Hopefully by tomorrow when we have AJ Caswell joining us from Sacramento. All right, Darnay. I kind of threw it out there yesterday following the Padres' very impressive comeback win. How was that not their signature win of the season to this point?
I would think to this point, yeah, and I was thinking throughout the course of the weekend as they were constantly trailing and having to play from behind and kind of digging themselves into big holes. Even, yesterday they get out to a good start and then they still managed to find themselves in a 7-3 hole. Yeah. What was the game last year? Who was the team that they were playing last year where they had that signature win that sort of set the identity and the tone for the season as this team that can come back from no matter what the deficit is? Like they have a certain level of fight in them that became a calling card and a hallmark of this team. It was the Cubs at Petco Park. I believe 8-0. They come back to win. That was, I want to say, like an early mid-April around this time last year that they did that, and you start to realize, okay, this team might be different. They're capable of doing things. They had the fight and the determination, the spirit that we hadn't seen from that 2023 team. That last year's team was all about that grit squad, the comebacks, the big innings. They could be down 5 in the second inning. You felt like one big inning later, you're right back into it. Yeah. Yesterday, not quite on that level. You're not talking about an 8-run deficit, but impressive in the way that they came back, especially after what had been a tough weekend. Bullpen, look, they're not going to continue at the rate that they were that opening homestand where they went 5 games without allowing a run, but maybe not as airtight as they had been. Starting to see some holes kind of creep up in the lineup. Some guys slow down after that really impressive start. So to scratch and claw their way back, sort of in similar fashion to what we saw last year, and then get that big run, no matter how they, whatever it takes to scratch it across, and that's what they've done. That's what they did, the first homestand. It wasn't just home runs and all that. There was a game where they hit like RBI double after RBI double, but it was applying pressure. It was making the other team feel the pressure. It was
Merrill's favorite phrase.
Yeah, leading to errant throws and errors and that sort of thing. And that's just how they've kind of gotten it done. And so that win definitely kind of fit the identity of what we've seen to this team to this point. And it feels so much different to get that win and to avoid the sweep than it would have if that comeback had fallen short. And you're talking about 3 straight losses in Chicago.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the thing that's impressive to me, you had, of course, Nick Pivetta. He was brilliant in his first outing, right? But he really struggled early. He struggled on Saturday, only 3 innings. You had to go ahead and get into your bullpen really early in that game. You had to do it again yesterday with Kyle Hart, not even getting out at the first inning, for them to go ahead and fight back for that. That's why I thought it was impressive. To get swept, it can be a little bit. I know what these guys say. We forget about it, 24 hours, the whole long flight being to Sacramento. You don't want to get swept at any point, but to lose in pretty ugly fashion, they were not well played, well executed baseball games. So I don't care if you win ugly. I don't care if you win on an error. That you have to feel pretty good about that win if you're the Padres. But you did mention the holes. Which we've talked about since, the quiet offseason, right? No one's expecting Nick Pivetta to be a Cy Young Award winner for the season or a candidate. But you're seeing Kyle Hart. Again, with the injuries with Yu Darvish and then the oblique for Matt Waldron, you need Kyle Hart. But I think we're talking about holes in the pitching staff. That to me was magnified this weekend. You can never, ever have enough pitching. Hopefully the Padres are getting some good news, or at least a timeline on Yu Darvish. He's going to throw. Maybe we'll see him in a couple of weeks, but you're still a ways from that. When it comes to the offensive holes in the lineup, where do you want to start, Darnay?
It's interesting. Like, I think one of the positions where we were really concerned was catcher. And while the numbers aren't going to blow you away, like Elias Diaz has done some things, Martin Maldonado with a homer, like He's been, I think, a little bit better than we expected, but I think you go through the spring, Jason Hayward doesn't do a whole lot for you. You think he's going to be on the roster regardless. You're banking on his experience. You are, you're bringing in primarily as a defensive option, as a good clubhouse guy. Like, he'll always be that. And you just hope that things come around offensively. Between he and Brandon Lockridge, and Lockridge has had its moments, like, at this point, you haven't really been able to count on those guys to provide a whole lot for you. That just kind of is what it is right now in left field. Now, as we saw during the spring, there are some options. There is a guy named Oscar Gonzalez that has 3 home runs already in El Paso. Mm-hmm. It is El Paso, but I think what he saw from the spring was what we saw from him in the spring was impressive. He has a track record 2022, really, really good. Had some big moments for Cleveland in the postseason. So I think that's one of the interesting kind of questions with this team is how long do they ride that out with Jason Hayward, with Brandon Lockridge, with Yuli Gurriel? And that's probably the biggest of all. I mean, when your OPS, I think it's like 177 at the moment, something along those lines. There was, I think, reason for concern once they brought him in. I think it was a little bit surprising. I think, there's a lot of people wondering like why they went the direction that they did with a number of roster decisions, not bringing David Peralta back when he was so good and such a natural fit for this team.
Right.
And then I think Gurriel seems to be kind of the most glaring question mark now for this team. And how long do you ride it out with a guy that does have some track record, but what has he done for you since 2021? He's now 40 plus. It's hard to really buy into the optimism in terms of Gurriel at this point. That was
a hard sell, I know, for Padres fans. When it was announced, it shocked a lot of people. I don't think he's done much to go ahead and to win anybody over. You mentioned Oscar Gonzalez. I know he's been very, very popular on Threads and on Blue Sky from Padres fans who want him here. I think Connor Joe is another guy to go ahead and pay attention to. They signed him. He had options, so he's out there. He's been productive. But I would agree with you on Hayward. I'm very curious how long the Padres will ride that one out. I know with Gurriel, he worked out with Manny Machado in the offseason, and I'm sure Manny said, "Listen, this guy looks great. He looks fast, best shape. He's the best shape of his life." So I don't know much of a factor that's going to be and how long that's going to matter because listen, Nelson Cruz was a beloved guy. Now he was absolutely at the end. You could tell that when they first brought him in, but leadership can only get you so far. You have to produce, and they do have options. This is an older team. Darnay, when you were in the press box, elevator, I'm not sure if you pay attention the way that I do because I have a lot of time to just stare at nothing. Anything strike you about what's in the press box elevator?
You know what? I feel like I noticed something my first day walking in, and now that you put me on the spot,
I am putting you on the spot.
What is it?
Who's on the banner?
I mean, aren't there lots of guys on the banner? Aren't there like 6 guys on the banner?
No, there's like 5. There's Machado,
Tatis,
Merrill,
Bogarts,
and there's one starting pitcher. Can you identify the starting pitcher?
No.
Nick Pivetta.
Was it Nick Pivetta?
Nick Pivetta. Does that strike you as funny, or do you think when the Padres, when they designed their murals for the ballpark, they weren't quite sure what was going to happen with AJ Preller and this pitching staff and who's going to come, who's going to go? Maybe at least Pivetta's locked in.
They couldn't have thrown Yu Darvish on there?
No, he's not on there.
I mean, Joe,
maybe I'm wrong. He wasn't on there. Maybe when we go back there on Friday against the Rockies, maybe they'll add them on.
Joe's got the injury, so that's understandable. We're sure about Robert Suarez. Maybe like Adrian Morejon or Jeremiah Estrada. You don't want to throw one of those guys on there.
Estrada's not bad.
Look. How much did our collective hope and optimism for this team change when they brought in Nick Pivetta? And then obviously he performs the way he did his first time out. But I feel like it was kind of doom and gloom up until the moment they brought in Nick Pivetta. And you're like, okay, you have a 4th starter. And B, maybe there is some money to send. And C, maybe they won't have to get rid of Cease, King, or Luis Ariz. So I feel, maybe it's just me, but I feel like everybody's mood was boosted once they brought in Nick Pivetta.
I feel like you're talking specifically about Jim Russell and Jim Russell only because he had something to go ahead and talk about on his Reach Around show. And you know what? It's funny because I thought about something completely different. I thought like, wow, now this means they're definitely going to trade one of these pitchers. Like I thought it was more like backup depth for one of their pitchers with Cease and King. And it'll be really interesting to see what happens there. Okay. Is there anything more you want to talk about with this from this weekend? Anything strike you?
I don't know. Like, look, series like this are going to happen. Friday, you get their first loss. You didn't feel like they, pitching staff didn't exactly like Randy Vasquez didn't necessarily have like a bad day. Offensively, they just kind of went quiet.
Yeah.
I think, taking the positive from Sunday, they felt like a very Padres 2024 Padres type win. Mm-hmm. And I think kind of the big overarching thing from the first week and a half of the season is this team looks pretty darn similar to 2024 in the way they go about their business. And I think that's really, really good news and projects really well going forward, especially when we've been in these patterns of Jace Tingler, really good first season. Jace Tingler really now 2021 did start off really well, but then ended up being a once in a century debacle, meltdown. Whatever meltdown. Mm-hmm. Yes, to quote the late great Peter Seidler.
Yeah.
2022, we know what happened. 2023 was a disaster. So in the back of my mind this entire time is, okay, we'll see if Mike Schilt really is the guy. And he's given us no reason to think that he isn't, but we've seen this play out before. So I think with having that concern in the back of my mind to see the way they've started this season and have kind of that same mentality, same grit, all those different types of intangibles and guys playing well gives me some hope even after what was kind of a clunky weekend.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I just think that I might change some of my comments from earlier. I know I said that you need to have a fast start. But you play 500 All-Star break, anything can happen. I think the most encouraging thing was the Padres extending Jackson Merrill. I thought that the biggest thing that this ownership, the new control person, John Seidler, has to go ahead and do is say, listen, we are committed. We're doing things the Peter Seidler way, because if Peter Seidler were here, Jackson Merrill's a player he would have loved. Jackson Merrill, they would have signed this deal the way they did, Tatis a couple of years ago. Speaking of Tatis, one of his best friends just got paid. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., 14 years, no deferrals, $500 million. Did the Padres catch a massive bargain in Tatis? If AJ Preller could do that over right now, same contract for Tatis?
Well, did they catch a massive? Do they now have two of the best big contracts in all of baseball with Tatis and with Merrill?
I would say 100% on Jackson Merrill. Every baseball person I've talked to, some team officials are like, wow, the Padres, they made out on that deal.
And I think when Tatis signed his deal, I think that day we all had all of our reaction was, wow, this is a pretty team friendly deal for a player of his caliber.
Yeah.
Obviously gets through a couple tough seasons, but now being on the other end of that, it's funny when it's during the offseason and people are bored and you have Yankees fans pitching like a Tatis trade or, the Padres need to shed salary. Why don't they get rid of Tatis? Why would they shed their most valuable contract for a player who hasn't even entered his physical prime yet?
No, 26 years old, correct? 26.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so you already had that for a player of his caliber that when he's at his best is probably a top 3 talent in the game. Then everybody's hoping that you extend Jackson Merrill. You don't know how they're going to make the money work. And then Merrill is a good enough teammate to give them the home team bargain or whatever you want to call it. It's incredible. And so as you see the value of these contracts go up, as you see another big name player get paid, what happened with Juan Soto, the dollar figures are just astronomical. Yeah. And so to have Tatis now, 5 years into his, and then Jackson Merrill, next year he enters a 9-year that could be a 10-year pact. It's unbelievable and extremely fortuitous for a team that needs as much of a bargain on star players as they could possibly have. And part of that is because they have a huge contract on a player who has not performed to the level of that contract. And so it's kind of
are you talking about X?
I don't know, Marty. Who is it? Yeah. Xander Bogaerts, and it's early. I hope that Xander Bogaerts has a breakthrough season. You can tell it weighs on him. Seems like a great guy, great to talk to, hard worker, checks all the boxes. It just hasn't really come together for whatever reason in San Diego. And that contract's put AJ Preller in a bit of a bind, but now in his back pocket, he has the Merrill deal on top of one of the probably best contracts in baseball, as long as Fernando Tatis Jr. is healthy and on the field. I
completely agree. It's just this team, anytime Tatis gets on base, walk, single, whatever else, it's like you know something's going to happen. He's such an exciting player, man. He makes things happen. Leave him in that leadoff spot. I absolutely love it.
And doesn't he look so much better this year than he did last year when we didn't know that his leg was bothering him as long as it was? And then you realize it and you can see it kind of slowing him down a little bit. He looks so much quicker and more nimble and fluid on the field, like he did the first, couple few years of his career.
Yeah, they look good. They look good. Now, I was going to ask you just to open the interview when I asked you about about being a dad, and of course, Poppy and Jackson. Thank you for sleeping through this. We really appreciate you. How much does fatherhood change a person or mellow you out? Because I was thinking about that with Manny when I was going through some of my footage, and I'm putting together my interview with Manny Machado on SDFC. I'm just thinking about how different it is to talk to him. Not as salty, not as snippy. The post game stuff used to be a lot of fun, especially when he would give reporters business, as long as it wasn't me, of course. But no, how much does fatherhood change somebody and help them just mellow out a little bit? Now, you want them to mellow out, not in the field.
Yeah.
House, but maybe he's a bit more mature now.
Certainly does. It's a handful. It's exhausting. There's definitely kind of like a pick your battles, just survive type of nature to it. And when that's the case, if somebody says something to you that, normally you might want to all right, let me mix it up with them a little bit. Let me fire back. You just might not have the energy to do it. You might just be like, let me just get through this interaction and get on with my day, because I know it's waiting. I know it's waiting for me at home. I'm tired. I'm not getting as much sleep as I would like. They're demanding. So yeah, I think it, it gives you a little bit more perspective, and you just might not have the bandwidth to engage the way that you did in the past. Now, it can have the reverse effect, because we all know what it's like when we're at the end of our rope, right? And so sometimes that can cause you to express that frustration, certainly. But I think that there, as a parent, there are times where you just feel defeated and you're just trying to get through, just survive to the end of your day. And so okay, I'm going to pick my battle and just let some things slide, because I do not have it in me to really engage in this manner.
That's great. I'll have to ask him the next time that he's in the mood for those for questions like that. Darnay, are you sending anybody to Sacramento for this series, since it's in California?
No, I wish, but no, I would like to see it. I mean, I just want to see it. I'm so irritated. I'm irritated about everything involving the A's organization and what they did to their fan base. It must be just terrible. Why would that strike a chord with you, Marty? I can't figure out why that would be the case.
Just a crap ass owner who starts spending money and changes things after he leaves, who refused to engage local officials or his fans. And the thing that makes me absolutely crazy is how his fellow owners voted him to the executive council. That's just
crazy.
A punch in the face to your fans, man. That's just terrible. But
to your sport.
Just to your sport. What a terrible message. We want baseball fans. Let's go ahead and just screw them over now. I know you have to go in a second. Do you want to hear from Manny Machado on the SDFC involvement? It's just a small portion.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
All right. Let me know if you have any issues with this video loading. But this is Manny Machado. Hang on. Here we go. Manny, you have set up your family for generations to come, just being a great baseball player. What made you want to go ahead and get involved with SDFC?
You know what? Honestly, it's about the community, right? I mean, when I came here and Peter and Ron gave me this contract. One of the commitments was about growing the city and being better, right? And they gave me the opportunity to be a part of something special coming here to San Diego, and they asked me to join join the ownership group and be a part of it and grow the city with another major sports franchise. And I was beyond excited to be a part of it. And I know how much the fans mean to the city of San Diego here, and how well they treat us here at Petco, and how great they are as a fan base. So to see another major sports franchise here in the city, it's been awesome to be a part of.
This used to be a great NFL city. You can see it's a great baseball city. What made you confident, though, that MLS could be something big here in San Diego?
The fans. I think the fans here have been great. They support whoever it is. It's whether it's San Diego State, the Padres when the Chargers are here. The fans just love the sports, man. They love the community. They cheer on every sports team, and I knew it was going to be a big success. And I got into it, and then I find out that San Diego is a huge soccer town, number one in the country, and that was kind of interesting to find out. That was kind of some news to me. So, but you could definitely see it. I mean, you see them supporting the team. It's been a great experience for few first games. So I'm excited for the rest of the season.
To my very first MLS game, which happened to be the home opener for SDFC, and I was absolutely blown away. Sat next to that supporters section. Are you, Manny, surprised by how quickly it's caught on, and just the type of outpouring from the fans?
Again, no, not at all. I knew what our fans. I've experienced it here, right? I come to the ballpark every single day, and for the last 7 8 years, they've supported us, and I see it. And it's just not us. It's every, like I said, it's San Diego State, San Diego. No matter what it is, whatever sport it is, they go out there and they support. So, I knew they were going to come out there and do the same for FC, and they've blown it out the water.
Whoops.
I also agree that they've blown it out of the water.
They've blown it out of the water. I'm sorry. I forgot to mute the audio on the B-roll, but it was awesome. That was my cute little nephew in the beginning. By the way, on Saturday, he was leading a Chucky Lozano chant in our section.
Nice.
When Lozano had been subbed out. He needs to sit in the supporter section because he was the loudest person in our section. 4 people changed their seats to get away from us. So you know what? Too bad.
Got to get him in the supporter section. He'll be right at home there.
Supporter section. Hey, Darnay, thank you for your time. Before I let you go, though, on this, how about for you? For your coverage of SDFC, what have you thought really of the season so far at this point?
It's been incredible. And, I think there was some optimism just in how good the team could be. But you're thinking, like, can they compete for a playoff spot and not be, right there near the top of the Western Conference standings? And so I think the way that they've played, I've been impressed. Chucky gets hurt. There's a lot of focus on Anders Dreyer. They've had like 10 different guys score goals this season. And so you're starting to see like there's a lot of talent on this team. They've controlled games. So they've been really, really impressive on the field. And I think what's good is like they're playing a style, like they want to score goals. They want to be aggressive. They want to win matches. They don't want to settle for ties. They don't want to hang back. Like they want to put an entertaining product on the field, and they've done that. And the atmosphere of the matches, I've only been able to get to the home opener, but just watching it and hearing other people were at the matches, it's just incredible. And so for things to start the way that they have both on the field in terms of the environment, I think for those of us who are optimistic about it, like exceeded even our expectations. It's been really, really cool to watch.
The atmosphere is awesome. And I'll tell you this, like, I love press boxes, right? And, I love covering the Padres professionally. One thing I miss about all this is what it's like to just, be a fan and have a beer and get a little bit of crazy. I've done that for the SDFC games, and it has been awesome. I go through the concourses. The vibe there is on par with Padres. I'm telling you, it's insane. It is so much fun. So you don't have to be a soccer fan. You can still have fun and just kind of soak in the San Diego vibe.
Oh, yeah.
Darnay, before I let you go, man, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Poppy. Shout out Jackson. What do you have coming up this week on the On Fire podcast?
I have no idea, but we'll have a show on Thursday.
Thursday, okay.
Yeah, Derek, I've been a long weekend for me, a long weekend of housework for me. And so I've back to it today, back to work. But you know how it is when you're like, swamped with other things, got to click back into work mode. But yeah, Thursday afternoon, usually around 3:00, Derek and I will get on and talk some Padres. And I've been meaning to reach out to some folks. You were kind enough to join me recently, which was very, very fun. And so, but yeah, Thursday afternoons, Derek and I on Fire podcast. He went solo last week, so we'll be back with him on Thursday, and look forward to talking about whatever it is that happens the next few days in Sacramento.
Yeah, going solo, it sucks. It's terrifying. It's unnerving. So thank you all. Thank you, Darnay. You're the man. Thank you for doing this. Thank you, Elaine, Louise, Neil, PA, all of you guys for your kind comments. I look forward to the technician from Spectrum coming here because, again, they told me the average person has 3 timeout outages per day on their internet. I average 48 per day.
Hey, but 0 on this episode of Marty Time TV.
0 on this episode of Marty Time TV. Thank you all for joining me. The AJ Caswell will join us tomorrow. Will join me tomorrow from Sacramento. So we'll get a full report on the food. That's all that counts, right? That's all we care about. Food, the amenities, the press box.
Nothing else.
Like that. All right, guys. Thank you, Darnay. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for your time. Thank you, Hamul.